Hear my plea to the fallen, leave me to be with the broken one.
Most peculiar, out of nowhere he suddenly said, religion is over.
Friedrich Hayek, a tweedy Austrian-born economist, had one of those light bulb moments in the mid-1930s and switched on an ideology that unites its enemies in scorn but has inspired governments and entrepreneurs down the decades: neoliberalism. The idea was built on the classical liberalism of the 18th century and a defence of individual liberty, protecting private property and the freedom of markets from external interference, taxes, regulations, levies, as much as possible.
This is John. He is a well-educated individual. Overall, he has a decent living situation. He finished his postgraduate studies with a good grade. He has a good job, a nice car, he goes to the gym regularly, and he enjoys going out with his mates. Most people would define John as a polite person, a very well-mannered and smart individual. On the surface, it might seem like he's got it all figured out. Yet, John feels like he lacks something. He feels like after all the hard work he put in, he isn't in the place he wanted to be. He feels empty on the inside.
Don't you dare reach for your pocket, I told myself. In fact, take that phone and go put it in another room.
Everything I say.
As a student who is passionate about learning and believes that a true education should be experiential in nature. As the great philosopher Aristotle once said, "For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them." Therefore, I asked you, how can we truly learn without experiencing the feeling? Throughout history, we can see countless examples of experiential learning in action. From the ancient Greeks who believed in learning through play and exploration, to the Renaissance masters who learned by doing and experimenting, to modern-day pioneers who learn through trial and error, the importance of experiential learning cannot be denied. As a student, I believe that the university has a responsibility to provide opportunities for experiential learning, whether it be through internships, research projects, or other hands-on experiences. We must be given the chance to put our knowledge into practice and truly feel.
The advantage of Delord in talking about these things is that nobody takes it quite seriously. Whereas the undifferentiated aesthetic continuum could be taken seriously. And that would be a great mistake.
Here we go.
John's parents always told him to study well in school and to get good grades, because that will help him get a good job, and then he'll have a peaceful life. They assumed that a good education would make him happy. So, in their case, education was necessary, only because they thought that it would help John live the kind of life he wanted. Or maybe the life his horoscope promised.
All the ways you wish you could be, that's me.
You shot yourself?
Yes, but it's okay. Marla, look at me. Everything's gonna be fine.
And I think this is what makes the psychological concept of Lacanism appealing. But as Academy of Ideas points out, forced sacrifice more often than not leaves us in the pits of hell.
But an involuntary sacrifice is, according to Jung, an unmitigated catastrophe. It is more likely to result in a psychological breakdown than a psychological rebirth.
It is therefore better to take the leap ourselves. Instead of waiting for disaster to hit us, we ourselves must initiate change, despite us being creatures of habit, comfort and predictability. Because when we step into chaos, into the unknown on our own terms, we are able to change our lives and ourselves more effectively.
I took your little plan and I turned it on itself. Look what I did to this city with a few drums of gas and a couple.
Pretty fly for a white guy.
So hypnotizing. Could you be the devil? Could you be an angel?
My experiences have been met with bullying and stigmatization from my peers, which has only further exacerbated the issue. Furthermore, this is extremely concerning to me as it can lead to serious mental health issues, particularly for those who may be triggered by past drug addiction experiences. I stand before you today to address a critical issue that has been weighing on my mind. As a partner in this contract, I have been denied the right to express any form of evolutionary theory based on the research of psychedelics. This denial has been met with a lack of discussion and an overwhelming sense of judgment. The evidence of prejudice and by stigmatizing information from the university, I have been left in the isolated situation and I have to deal with the fact that my human rights are taken away. The laws of the United Kingdom provide us with the right to education, and we must use this education to promote diversity and tolerance, rather than discrimination and intolerance. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. This includes the right to education, which is guaranteed in Article 26 of the Declaration. Furthermore, the Equality Act of 2010 in the United Kingdom prohibits discrimination on the basis of protected characteristics such as race, religion, and disability. This act ensures that everyone has the right to fair and equal treatment, regardless of their background or past experiences. The issue of mental health in universities is a complex one that requires a multifaceted approach. By promoting open and honest discussions, embracing diversity, and providing a range of learning modalities, we can create a safer and more inclusive society for all.
Last burning ember, let us never surrender. May we rise into the call for the glory and the fall. For the beat and the broken, for the lost and forsaken, let us never surrender. To the call for the beat and the broken, for the lost and forsaken, let us never surrender. For the glory and the fall.
Depression is a disorder that afflicts over 10% of the world's population, but we as a society know little about it. Stereotypes tell us that depressed people are weak, unless they happen to be a tortured artist. It can be difficult to understand depression because it's invisible. It's a disorder defined by thoughts, behaviors, and feelings, rather than obvious symptoms like vomiting, rashes, or fever. Those who have experienced depression are all too familiar with comments from misguided friends such as "snap out of it" or "just get up and do something." Even those with depression might have a hard time understanding what they are experiencing, and they often blame themselves for not being able to snap out of it.
In 1943, a chemist called Albert Hofmann, working in Basel, Switzerland, accidentally absorbed about 20 micrograms of a compound he'd synthesized a few years earlier.
You see, this is how most families and individuals think. They value education because they understand it is important. But what is education really? What is its purpose? What is this thing that people value so much? Is education really a tool that helps you get a good job after you graduate? Or just the debt that drags you down for years after?
In order to learn anything, whether it's math, a foreign language, guitar, or how to dribble a basketball, you need to create and strengthen pathways in your brain. Think about shooting a free throw. Know that feeling when you've got it down and don't even have to think about it? That's muscle memory. Here's the thing. Muscle memory lives in the brain, not the muscles. Your brain controls everything your muscles do, and it does this by activating specific neural pathways for each and every movement. These are functional pathways, neurons working together to achieve a goal. Say you're learning how to shoot a free throw. If it's your first time doing it, you don't yet have a pathway for that movement in your brain. You need to create it. Let's use an analogy to look at what's happening in the brain during this time. When you're first learning, your brain is like a forest full of trees and dense foliage, with no clear pathway between point A and point B. As you learn the mechanics of shooting a free throw, you create a trail through the forest. Now you can shoot the free throw because you've created that pathway in your brain, but you probably don't make many shots because it's so new. The pathway isn't very clear yet. In order to improve your free throw, you need to refine and strengthen the free throw pathway in your brain. The way you do that is through practice. Practice gradually widens the trail through the trees, turning it into a dirt road between A and B. You're starting to get pretty good now. You're making more free throws than not. You don't have to think about the mechanics as much. That's because the pathway gets stronger after each practice rep. And you've done a lot of reps. With even more practice, the dirt road turns into a paved road connecting A and B, allowing information to be transmitted at a faster rate. Now you're a 70% free throw shooter, and when you step up to the line, you don't even have to think about it. Eventually, with enough practice, what started as a trail has become a full-blown highway. Now you're a master, draining almost every free throw, and the movement is completely second nature. Scientists call this plasticity, and it's your brain's innate ability to create and strengthen connections between neurons. These connections are the path through the forest.
However, we don't want to educate them too much now, do we? Remember, knowledge is dangerous. There's a reason why slaves weren't allowed to learn how to read or write. So if you're gonna educate the masses, you have to tread very carefully. Teach them too much and they'll become too ambitious, too independent. They'll think for themselves. They'll become your competitors. Instead, you want to teach them just enough so they can keep your empire running with a happy, obedient smile on their face.
Let us never surrender. May we rise unto the call.
It is clear that the traditional education system is not meeting the needs of all students, and we need to create a more inclusive and supportive learning environment. To do this, we must redefine what we mean by learning. Learning is not simply the acquisition of knowledge and facts, but rather the development of critical thinking skills, creativity, and emotional intelligence. By embracing a more holistic approach to learning, we can create a learning environment that takes into account the diverse interests and needs of students. This requires a fundamental shift in the way we think about education. It is important to address the issue of mental health in universities by promoting open and honest discussions, embracing diversity, and providing a range of support services.
The education system is predicated on the idea of academic ability, and there's a reason. The whole system was invented around the world. There were no public systems of education really before the 19th century. They all came into being to meet the needs of industrialism.
Ah yes, our entire education system today was created because John D. Rockefeller needed more workers. But it wasn't just Rockefeller. No, loads of other rich American tycoons poured billions of dollars into creating the modern-day education system we have today. These are the same wealthy dynasties behind big oil, big food, big pharma, and they all wanted to provide you with free education, while they send their kids to private schools. As Rockefeller once said, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. These are the dark origins of our education system and why you want to stay dangerous.
I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos.
We must redefine what we mean by learning. Learning is not simply the acquisition of knowledge and facts, but rather the development of critical thinking skills, creativity, and emotional intelligence. By embracing a more holistic approach to learning, we can create a learning environment that takes into account the diverse interests and needs of students. This requires a fundamental shift in the way we think about education. It is important to address the issue of mental health in universities by promoting open and honest discussions, embracing diversity, and providing a range of support services. This includes online mental health resources, counseling services, and peer support networks. In conclusion, the broken education system is failing many students, and we need to take action to create a more inclusive and supportive learning environment. By redefining what we mean by learning and embracing a more holistic approach, we can create a learning environment that meets the diverse needs of all students. Sources: American College Health Association, 2018, American College Health Association National College Health Assessment 2, Undergraduate Student Reference Group Executive Summary Spring 2018. American College Health Association, Bokinschitz, MP, and Johnson, MW 2016, Classic Hallucinogens in the Treatment of Addictions. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. This includes the right to education, which is guaranteed in Article 26 of the Declaration. Furthermore, the Equality Act of 2010 in the United Kingdom prohibits discrimination on the basis of protected characteristics such as race, religion, and disability. This act ensures that everyone has the right to fair and equal treatment, regardless of their background or past experiences. The issue of mental health in universities is a complex one that requires a multifaceted approach. By promoting open and honest discussions, embracing diversity, and providing a range of learning modalities.
Neoliberalism argued that the market wasn't just an absence of interference, it could produce a philosophy or a way of thinking all of its own.
We can create a safer and more inclusive society for all. Mental health issues among university students are a serious problem, and one that needs to be addressed urgently. We need to create a more supportive and inclusive learning environment that takes into account the diverse interests and needs of students. As Albert Einstein once said, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think.
For a million years, we've watched the sky and huddled in fear. But somehow you still find yourself quietly rooting for the storm. As if a part of you is tired of waiting, wondering when the world will fall apart. By lot, by fate, by the will of the gods. Almost daring them to grant your wish. But really you can wish all you want, because life is a game of chance, and each passing day is another flip of the coin.
Modern life can be a mundane existence. We are safe and prosperous, but we can also feel stuck. Stuck in our little routines, our office jobs, our relationships, but most of all, stuck with ourselves. Our limitations and fears, our inability to live freely in this tightly structured society, and often our inability to truly change ourselves, to live up to what we know we can truly be.
The evidence of prejudice, and by stigmatizing information from the university, I have been left in the isolated situation, and I have to deal with the fact that my human rights are taken away. The laws of the United Kingdom provide us with the right to education, and we must use this education to promote diversity and tolerance, rather than discrimination and intolerance.
And I'm going to begin with Hinduism, to give you a sort of fundamental account of what it's all about. I imagine some of you were present at the lecture I gave in the university on religion and art. And I discussed the view of the world as drama. Now, I want to go more thoroughly into this, because the Hindu view of the universe is fundamentally based on the idea of drama. That is to say, of an actor playing parts. The basic actor in this drama is called Brahma. And this word comes from the Sanskrit root br, which means to swell or expand.
The idea of using psychedelics as a way to treat mental health conditions can still sound pretty controversial. In fact, conservative attitudes towards these drugs stopped research into psychedelics for decades. But in recent years, this research has absolutely exploded.
You can glimpse this, for instance, when I say, I'm in the market for a beer, showing that we've internalized the idea of a market for other values. Nowadays, you probably hear the word neoliberalism used more as a term of abuse, hurled by opponents at economic globalizers, nasty bankers, or governments limiting spending on public works or welfare. The word neo or new has morphed into a way of signalling, I don't like this one bit. It's the nearest thing economic terminology has to a rotten tomato. But neoliberalism isn't just a dirty word. It's an entire mindset of approaches to the way state and market interact with our aspirations, emphasizing privatization over state control as the best way to deliver public services. The advent of neoliberalism led to one of the great punch-ups of economists between Hayek and his best frenemy, John Maynard Keynes. Keynes argued that government should get involved in increasing demand to keep productivity up and unemployment down. Hayek dismissed Keynes as knowing very little about economics, and he wrote a snotty book review of one of Keynes's major works. Despite the habitual crash of 2007-8 created a more testing mood towards deregulation, and neoliberalism gained a bad rep because it was taxpayers who had to bail out the banks. But there's a broader cultural reason neoliberalism gets it in the neck right now. Inevitably, it leads to such fast-paced, uncontrolled globalization because it does away with barriers to trade and to financial flows. It prizes the innovative above continuities, so you could say it puts the corporation above the nation.
Incredibly hard for all people is personality change.
You're looking for a way to change your life. You could not do this on your own. All the ways you wish you could be, that's me.
depression, addiction, and PTSD. Australian researchers are now testing whether psilocybin, the psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms, can help in battling methamphetamine addiction. Some really promising results in treating things.
Dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning.
Have complete, full knowledge, full bliss consciousness. Everything else is just mundane and secondary. I wanted to know some method of enlarging my own consciousness, and that's meditation. It's been there millions of years, and knock and the door will be opened.
I think, but you never learn that until much later on, I think. But never work for other people. What you do. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way. I've got no great desire to be loved in a major way by faceless anonymous crowds. It doesn't really, it's not part of something that I want. And if the other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth.
Watch society break down and find out what's truly important.
Laicism is the paradoxical desire to be struck by disaster, to go back into primordial chaos, to witness the end of the world.
I prayed for a crash, or a mid-air collision. Anything.
Since my diagnosis, I sleep just fine.
After all, it's just life. It's not the end of the world.
What are human rights? Well, human rights are the values which keep society fair, just and equal. They protect children, the elderly, people in care, victims of domestic violence, people with mental health problems, religious groups, teachers, soldiers, and yes, prisoners. They protect all of us. They protect you. Our human rights are protected by law. That means we can do something if our rights are attacked. But not everyone loves human rights. Some want to water them down, even scrap them. Our rights are under threat, so it's time to get educated. Societies used to be controlled by all-powerful rulers who could be horribly unjust. Kings only gave rights to people they liked. Over thousands of years, people fought for equality, and with every hard-won right came new laws that improved how we lived. But in the 20th century, brutal dictators came to power. They ruled by fear, like the kings of the past. Those hard-won rights, they were dismantled on an unimaginable scale. After World War II, the democracies got together and said, never again. They created a simple document setting out the basic rights we all need to live a dignified life. The European Convention puts rights, not rulers, at the heart of our society. Like the right to life, to liberty, to free speech. Then, in 1998, Parliament passed the Human Rights Act, which made our human rights part of UK law. This means public bodies like hospitals and schools must respect our rights, and if they don't, we can go to our local court to enforce them. Now, because of human rights, patients in hospitals must be treated with compassion. Journalists cannot be forced to reveal their sources. Soldiers must be given proper equipment. Gay people have to be treated equally, and the police cannot keep our DNA forever if we're innocent. We have to be treated fairly, at work, at home, in school, anywhere, everywhere. Our human rights are hard-won. They're part of our British heritage. We are proud of them. If we lose them, vulnerable people will pay the biggest price.
Everything becomes chaos.
If we are unable to change ourselves through the discipline of changing our own actions, it becomes tempting to wish for chaos to force us to change. Because yes, chaos did create the Joker, but did it not also create Batman? Can disaster also not open the door to greatness? When we are thrust into a personal hell, there is also a chance we can come out changed for the better.
You shot yourself? Yes, but it's okay. Marla, look at me. I'm really okay. Trust me. Everything's gonna be fine.
For the beat and the broken, for the lost and forsaken, let us never surrender. May we rise unto the call.
Why don't people get it?
That meant looking at the world and at transactions in daily life through the eyes of the market.
John and his family thought that education means to get good grades and to have good manners. However, real education is beyond earning degrees, and it is beyond any systematic instruction. The real purpose of education is to elevate your consciousness. The real purpose of education is to evolve yourself. Education is meant to help you reach a higher state of being. Assuming that education is important only because that it can help you get a good job after you graduate is dangerous. If you see things that way, you just limit yourself. And why go over your debt limit for that? Education is crucial because it is the only way you can develop a holistic understanding of the world.